T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey y'all, welcome to the first ever NXT/NXT UK Aftershow with Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. As usual, or if you may or may not know if you're new, my name is Stephanie Hardy. I am the host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and commentator for the Belladonna division. But thankfully, I am not alone. I am here with my sister, the host and creator of In Cat We Trust, and basically just a woman who's just everywhere now doing backstage correspondence everywhere she's at. Please welcome Katrina.
Hey, what's up? Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope everybody is well and enjoying this nice weather we're having.
Yeah, it's really great. Like I was telling you off screen, like it's really hot, but I am glad that the weather is evening out a bit and it's starting to feel like springish summer, at least down here in Alabama, at least. But yeah, sometimes it feels like it skips straight into summer. Like it'd be spring for like maybe a few weeks and then we go straight into summer. But either way, I'm glad it's happening. It's a great change. So I'm pumped. I'm so happy that we get to talk about the third brand, NXT 2.0 and NXT UK. I know a lot of people, are into NXT 2.0, but then may not be as into NXT UK. But thankfully, we have the opportunity to cover it, and I'm so excited. And what about you, Kat?
Definitely. I know, yes, as you said, a lot of people don't like 2.0 for whatever reason. They like the gold and black, or black and yellow, if that's, or maybe black and gold, whatever. But
yeah,
they like that brand better. But I've actually been enjoying 2.0. I like the different types of characters we've been getting, and it's kind of a test to see kind of what they can do. And so I like it. And NXT UK particularly was actually pretty solid this week. So I can't wait. I'm excited as well.
Yes, I am so pumped for it. So, of course, we're going to start by talking about all of the matches that happened on NXT 2.0 this past Tuesday on USA Network, which was also their special NXT Spring Breakin, because, of course, around this time is when a lot of students and a lot of people are going on vacation for spring break and stuff like that. So that was the general theme. They had beach stuff all around, beach balls all around, and it was just really nice if you're into that type of summer or spring behavior. So this was a themed episode, but it was really great. It was really solid, and I enjoyed it. So first off, we're going to talk about the triple threat match for the NXT North American Championship, which is currently being held by Cameron Grimes. And in this match, you had Solo Sikoa, the resident Uso of NXT, and Carmelo Hayes, aka Mello Don't Miss, aka with his assistant Trick Williams, who I think is they're both gorgeous together, so I call them Trick and Treat. So it's whatever though. So this match was really good. You had lots of solid action in it, just basically what you could come to expect from these three guys. You had Solo Sikoa and his hard-hitting action, and of course you had Carmelo Hayes with his show-offy type of style, and then you had Cameron Grimes getting it on too. And here's one point where they had a Tower of Doom that Solo Sikoa initiated, and that was a really good part. But in the end, Carmelo Hayes wound up retaining his title. So he is here to stay, and he has proven that he is a stellar champion that is just ready to take his place in NXT 2.0. I can say for myself, I was a little bit disappointed because I love Carmelo Hayes, because he came out with a t-shirt and with his braggadocious energy talking about how, a championship needs him and not him
Yeah.
needing a championship. Like, that's just some crazy confidence that you just gotta have for a title to need you and for you not to need the title, bruh. That's amazing. And I just love his nature. And then I also love Solo Sokoa because it's like he is of the bloodline, but he's not of the bloodline at the same time because he's sort of separated from everybody else. But in the end, the winner was Cameron Grimes. So what did you think of this match, Kat?
It was actually a nice match to open up NXT. I know it was the spring break thing, and I remember when I was in like high school. Not that we weren't really doing anything in spring break in high school, but college kids were, and so they always had like the like Cancun when you're doing. So it was nice to kind of see that, like, okay, you're trying to give the, like, we're looking at maybe this is supposed to be like a nice relaxed type thing. But that match to open up was, I think, the perfect way to open up NXT yesterday. I did like your comment about calling Mello Trick and Treat Isla. That's a really nice way to spin that, because listen, Carmelo be in his bag sometimes, and I'm just like, listen. Listen, man, listen, I'm gonna go to home right on that one. But I like all three men. I, started liking Cameron Grimes when he started doing that whole money gimmick where he just had all this money. And I started being kind of more interested in him during that. And so to see three people very, very different from each other, again, Carmelo is super, he's very cocky, but and I don't really like cockiness necessarily all the time, but it works. It works so well with Carmelo. He does it so well that you kind of like, you know what, you right. you got it. You can't argue it. And so the fact that he was, like you said, saying that the title needed him, I was like, that is definitely some crazy confidence to have. But use that to your advantage. So it definitely was a good match. I do believe Solo definitely is like a little, he's like a little baby bloodline, and I would love to see if they ever put them together, what they can do, especially with, again, how Roman always gets with his family not doing and getting jobs done. So I feel like he would be upset that he didn't win yesterday, because, like, what are you doing? You got to get it done for the family. And so definitely an awesome way to open up NXT. It was an amazing match, but I wouldn't mind seeing Carmelo be champion. I do see that happening very soon, honestly. But I'm okay with Cameron retaining. I'm okay with him retaining. It was cool. Like, I was all right with that.
Yeah, and I actually am okay with Cameron Grimes winning it too, because of his story and everything that he's been through, especially proving himself in the wake of his father's passing and everything. So that is something that does resonate with me. So it is cool to see someone like him, with the ability that he has, rise up to the ranks and be a champion again. But I will say this though, I want Carmelo to possibly go for the NXT title. Like, I want him to go for the big one now. It was great when he did hold the NXT North American title, but at the same time, I want him to go for the big dog. So that's just kind of.
I see. I feel like he's definitely a star. I see it happening. He kind of gives me, like, how I tell people about Montez. Like, just something about Montez Ford that always stands out to me. Like, you can see him just at one point, you can see him being on top. And I definitely feel like Carmelo can definitely be at the top of NXT. And so hopefully we're in May of 2022 now. So maybe before the end of the year, we'll actually see him as NXT champion. Like, I don't see why not. He definitely has the charisma. He can wrestle. He's easy on the eyes. Yes. Get the women fans behind you, and you can do what needs to be done. So I definitely see it happening before the end of the year.
Yes, and shout out to Santana, our queen, and our editor-in-chief here at Women's Wrestling Talk. She is talking about how much she loves Carmelo Hayes and calling him one of her wrestling husbands. That's my partner, of course. I love it when we talk about how great, the guys are, but then how great they look and everything. She also said, I think once they are done with Braun and Joe Gacy, Melo will be NXT champion one day. To me, Melo really is the face of NXT. He has the total package. You are absolutely right, girl. So,
Agreed.
mhm. So, jumping ahead from that match, we had another good match in Grayson Waller versus basically a newcomer in the form of, gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now, in the form of Nathan Frazier. There we go. Nathan Frazier was someone that they kept, pushing and saying that him and Grayson Waller were going back and forth with each other on Twitter. And if you're a wrestling fan and if you follow anybody on NXT, Grayson Waller is a good follow because he is always getting in somebody's business and rubbing somebody the wrong way on Twitter. So when he gets to fight with somebody on Twitter, it's serious. And these two were going back and forth. But before this match took place, Nathan Frazier did have an interview with Mackenzie Mitchell and talked about, how he's willing to prove himself even in the shadow of an NXT great like Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins actually helped train him at the Black and Brave Academy. Shout out to Black and Brave, because I actually interviewed a couple of girls who do get trained there. So it's really cool to see that, name dropped within the realm of NXT, and
Yes.
to watch this trained man by Seth Rollins, who is NXT royalty at this point, go forth and have such a killer match with Grayson Waller, who is really brash and he loves to run his mouth, but he is a good wrestler. I will give him that. Um, it's just this was a really great back and forth match. And what was so funny about this match was you had off to the corner and in the audience you had Chase University rooting for Nathan Frazier because he was one of their students. And in the end, when Nathan got knocked off the top rope, um Grayson Waller was on the top rope and he was about to jump on him, but then um the Chase University students blew like an air horn at him and distracted him so Nathan Frazier could hit his finisher for the win. So it was 1, 2, 3, and Nathan Frazier won his debut match with the assist to Chase University. So this was a pretty funny interference that I wasn't exactly expecting myself. But the fact that this happened, I thought it was just really cute. And I'm really happy for Nathan Frazier having his moments like that. And it was a stellar match on Grayson Waller's part. So what did you think, Kate?
It's actually a really, really good match. I did like having a university to be there again during supposed to be spring break. Again, went very well into the theme.
Yes.
Normally a lot of times, college kids will definitely go with each other to vacay. They'll hang out, take that moment away from college classes and everything. And so personally, I thought it was a really nice touch. I definitely appreciated using the distraction to get the win. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And it wasn't done in a way that was super heelish. It was just done to get the job done. And so I appreciated that. So it was definitely a good match. I did love, and again, the whole, I think Satana, let me put that up since it's there. She said it's her HBCU. And so I thought that it was actually a really, really nice touch, like to end that. Like perfect, ties right into spring break. And it was a really solid, again, a solid match for the next match on the card after what the opening was a really solid like choice to go with their match.
Yeah, it really was. I liked it a whole lot. Like I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see more of what Nathan Frazier has to offer, as an NXT superstar. And basically who else Grayson Waller is also gonna beef with at this point, because it feels like he just has to smoke with everybody. Like everybody. It's like he's gone from his own henchmen to like AJ Styles at one point, and now he's coming at new people all the time. Like he just always fighting with somebody. It's hilarious to me. Oh my gosh. But in between that, we had a very interesting segment between Tony D'Angelo and his crew, because he's now given himself the moniker of the Dawn of NXT, and he had a little meeting with Legado del Fantasma, and they were sitting and trying to come to an agreement on basically just these two leaders of these two, gangs or whatever, coming to an agreement of peace. And for a moment, it looked like, they were kind of fighting with each other, but then they sort of took the high road and apologized, and then they, quasi made peace and drank or whatever. But then later on in the night, they got to fighting in the parking lot and everything and got kidnapped Legado del Fantasma style. So I know when I saw this part of the um episode, I felt like I was watching an episode of Power. Like, if any of you know the TV show Power from Stars and the Power universe, or as I like to call it, the Powerverse, I felt like I was just watching like two people who run, certain sides of the street or certain sides of the city or whatever, trying to make peace over some, alcohol and some booze and some food or whatever. Like, that's really what it felt like, that gangster stuff. So I thought it was interesting and very interesting how it unfolded, because even though they were saying, oh, we're going to have peace or whatever, we're going to have peace, a part of me felt like that peace ain't going to last long. And it didn't. Clearly, it didn't last a whole hour before they started fighting. So what did you think about that, Kat?
I thought it was a nice segment. It's funny that you mentioned it looked like a Power episode, because in my head, I was thinking like, when you got like, you're in Miami and you hear about like the cartels or something. That's the vibe I got from that. So seeing like the guys in the seats on the table, like, okay, let's have this meeting we don't really want to have, but it's kind of a necessary meeting. That's the vibes I got from that whole segment. Just like, oh, so you guys are clearly doing some stuff we don't need to know about, but you got to kind of try to squash it at this meeting. And so it's just funny that, because I went something very similar, just more so like if we're in Miami and it's like the stuff that goes down when people are in the clubs or the lounges. The guys who's running the club is having that meeting in like the board, like, the room upstairs where nobody knows that's what's going down. So I definitely got those vibes as well. And it was quite obvious that there wasn't going to be no real peace. I feel like that was just like, let's, again, like if there's a real big situation between one family or another family, or like this guy and another guy who's on different sides of the block or whatever, it's never, when do peace ever really last? And so I thought it was a nice play, and have everybody dressed down in the suits, which I thought was a nice touch. I like that. It was a nice little, segue away from the wrestling in the ring. I definitely didn't think the piece was gonna last, but I thought it was cool. I definitely did get, again, spring break. You get like the Miami vibe, something about to go down, but we don't need to know it's happening, but we know it's like it's happening, but we shouldn't know that it's happening. That's the vibe I got from that whole segment.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, and it just reminded me of basically every other gangster movie that you've basically ever seen or whatever. So I thought it was cool. But also after that, even though we may not have pictures of it in our, after show, you had Wendy Chu sort of, messing with the NXT Women's Champion Mandy Rose as she went to the spa to get a tan. And then of course she goes in the tanning bed, and then Wendy Chu sort of walks up to the tanning bed and turns up the volume on it, I guess the volume would be the right word, the temperature on the tanning bed, and caused her to look orange. And then of course the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane, walked up to her and saw her. They were like, girl, we're supposed to go to the beach together, but now you look orange and now you're not going to go anywhere. So they decided to go on to the beach, but then they did not know that they were followed by Wendy Chu. And Roxanne Perez. I want to call her Roxy so bad, but that's not her name anymore. But she's moved up in the world. Roxanne and Wendy Chu stole Toxic Attraction's flip-flops as they were playing in the water and everything. And then they revealed themselves. And then after they revealed that they were the ones who stole their flip-flops, Toxic Attraction had to run out into the concrete with their stuff in their hands, barefoot. And I know it had to be hot, because that sun, like, there was not a cloud in the sky. And usually when the sun is bare like that and is, shining on the ground, it's gonna get hot. So it was just so funny to see them struggle walking in their bikinis, trying to look cute or whatever, while at the same time getting their feet burned. So I just think it's funny to watch these girls get antagonized by Wendy Chu. So what did you think about that, Kat?
I thought it was a funny segment. She definitely was orange. And if you think of like Mandy, like some of the tanning, like pictures when she's like tanned a bit, or she's doing the skin tanning. Yeah, it's pretty much what she was trying to do. She definitely was like just kind of like she got burned, but it's like, all right, it was a bit extra, and so it kind of gave me also like Mean Girl vibes, and it was like, well, you can't be going with us looking like this. Like the scene when Regina was like she gained some weight and said she couldn't.
She was wearing sweatpants.
Yeah, and she had to wear the sweatpants because she couldn't fit into, and it was like, well, you can't, even though that was supposed to be like the rule. It gave me that kind of vibes, kind of like, well, we're a team, but also like you can't go with us looking like this either. And so I kind of got Mean Girl vibes from that segment, but I did find it like funny that Wendy Chu was doing what she was doing, and I liked like the vibe between her and Roxanne. I thought it was like a good, again, we see where they're gonna go with it, but I thought it was a nice little segment. Again, like spring break, you go to the beach, most people like to go to the beach, not getting burned, but you do like to enjoy the water and hopefully not walk on hot sand or get a sunburn. And so it was like relatable, like nobody wants to have a beach trip like this, but it was it was like a nice little cute segment, and so I enjoyed it. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and then also speaking of other segments, we had one segment with Indy Hartwell and Duke Hudson sort of mourning the loss of their significant others because, of course, the releases happened, and Persia Parada was one of the people who got released, as well as Dexter Loomis. So basically, there's no more Index and there's no more Duke and Persia. So now the both of them were just kind of staring at each other and thinking and insinuating that they were going to date, but then they decided not to. And Indy was like, hell no. And then they moved away from each other. So we do mourn the loss here at Women's Wrestling Talk of Index and Persia Parada, but I'm pretty sure they're going to go on and do amazing things in the independents or wherever they decide to go, because wrestling doesn't just begin and end with WWE, and their careers will continue to go on and prosper from there. But I will miss Index a lot because that was one of my favorite couples and one of my favorite weddings as well. So then after that, you had the announcement of the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, the first ever NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, and Tatum Paxley and Fallon Henley announced their intentions to be in the tournament and everything. And then you found out a little bit about them. One's an equestrian and another one likes to power lift. So it's really looking good. It's almost reminded me a little bit of the Mae Young Classic. Yeah. In the sense that you're seeing a lot of their personalities outside of the ring, and you're seeing their intentions, even though I really miss the Mae Young Classic. But either way, the Women's Breakout Tournament starts next week, and I'm really pumped about it. So what did you think?
Definitely looking forward to the tournament. I was also a big fan of the Mae Young Classic. We got some amazing women showcased during that tournament. And so I'm excited for it. I like to see more women in wrestling. I like to see more women on the TV screens. And hopefully it's to a point where we can get women's wrestling where it's not just the tournaments. Like I love a good tournament, but this should also be a very normal thing that we shouldn't have to wait for a tournament to get the women on the screens. And so hopefully they would do more of that. So I'm excited about the tournament. I was a bit sad about Dexter Loomis leaving. He was my guy. I loved him and I loved him and Indy. I liked that he didn't have to say much. He was a man of very little words. And I love that. Like a perfect spouse. You don't really got to hear like talking too much. Sometimes you're like, he just is there protecting and stuff. And I love that. And so I was very hurt when I found out he was leaving, because I actually, again, wrestling weddings are always very weird. Wrestling weddings never go the way they're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And so, but even this part when he like kind of pulled his jacket and he was like, y'all better not even say anybody object. One of my favorite absolute parts of a wrestling wedding. And so I am definitely going to miss him. But I wish, everybody who got released, I wish them well. And I hope, they have success coming up. But I was a little sad because I was upset when he left, and I was like, wait, I love Dex, like he's my guy. And so I was hurt. I'm not gonna lie, I was really hurt. And so to see her kind of look at the ring, and I'm like, yeah, did this like mid storyline too. It was like, yeah, broke them up. I will feel so bad about it. But WWE sometimes don't make the sense with some of their choices, and so here we are. But I wish them well. But I was a little sad. I was like, oh, he's gone. Right. I was a little sad. I really was.
And then when you think about it, Indy, like all of Indy's family is gone. Like the Way is no longer an entity in and of itself. Dexter, her husband's gone. Johnny Gargano's gone. Candice LeRae sort of has a question mark, even though, they had their baby Quill, of course. So she's being a mother, I guess, on maternity leave or whatever that, however that worked. And then Austin Theory is, of course, the United States champion on Raw. So he's on the main roster. So really, Indy is by herself now. And then she doesn't even have Persia anymore. So it's just like Indy is really like the only one left out of that whole group. And it's just so sad when you think about it. But it's going to be okay. We're going to hold on. So after that, it's going to be all right. We're going to hold on. Shout out to Bobby Batito in the comments. He did pop in. He said he's looking forward to watching the Breakout tournament, with the women, as we are as well. But moving on in the show, we had a women's tag team match with Cora, Jade, and Nikkita Lyons versus Natalya and Lash Legend. And I really love this match here because you got to see all of these women who, claim to be the future of women's wrestling or just the future of, NXT period, go up against and also team up with someone like Natalya, who I would say is one of the standard bearers of women's wrestling in WWE. And to watch these women sort of rise to the occasion of being in the ring with someone like her was just really amazing. Lash Legend is continuing to improve as an athlete, even though I don't know how she fights in leather. Big up to her because I'd be hot. But and then of course you had Nikkita Lyons with all of her kickboxing background and all of the above, continuing to show her prowess, and of course still looking good doing it, driving the timeline crazy forever. And Cora Jade being a good teammate. And I also love the symmetry that Natalya and Lash Legend had, towards the beginning. Like they were doing a good job isolating Cora Jade from her corner when she would tag Nikkita. But then towards the end of the match, they had a miscommunication, and Natalya kicked Lash Legend while she was down, and then Nikkita and Cora were able to come out with the win with their split, and then Cora splashed, and they won. So what did you think of this match?
It was a really, really good match. As you said with Natty, she's definitely somebody who she's an asset to have. I know people make jokes, about as far as Natty, but I feel like she's definitely one of the most resourceful women we have in WWE. And the fact that they was able to put her with NXT and she's working with them says a lot about who she is as a wrestler, but also who she is as far as in the locker room. And so I thought it was a really good match. Again, Natty is definitely one of the OGs, she's been there a long time, and when she needs to do something, she does it. I don't even think she really complains about where her role is for this, whatever role they put her in. She never really complains about it. She just does what needs to be done. And so I liked it. I did also agree, perfect way when you're doing tag team wrestling is also try to isolate the opponent, make it hard for them to get that tag in. Okay. And they definitely did that. And I know Nikkita and Lash Legend do have already a feud, and then you have Cora and Natty, oh, my idol is not really to say about your idol sometimes, if you actually know your idol is not who you think they are. And so it's that play off that, and then the play off the fact that these other two newcomers into WWE has this rival, and so it worked well. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely did want Lash Legend to win. I was a little upset that she didn't get the win, her and Natty didn't get the win, but it was a really, really good match, and you see that you see Lash Legend just getting better every week. You see her getting more comfortable with the cameras. You see her getting more comfortable with segments, and even with her in-ring ability. And then the same thing with Nikkita, who, why it's always some debate, because I've been seeing it on social media like crazy about, her and Lash Legend. Mm-hmm. It was a really solid match between both of them. And I was just it was good. I just was a little annoyed that Lash Legend didn't take that win. I was hoping that she got the win. But it's fine. It's fine. It was a good match. I just I did want her and Natty to win. That was more of a bias, though.
Yeah, but it was good, and I really did appreciate. I love that they had that opportunity to fight with someone like Natalya, and even fight side by side. And who knows? Maybe Lash could have, maybe multiple rivalries out of this. She could, since Natalya and her had that miscommunication. Her and Natalya could be beefing, or. And of course, they also, insinuated last week that maybe Natalya and Nikkita will fight. So there are just so many, layers, or maybe they'll all be in a triple threat. That would be cool. But like there's just so many, places they could go with that feud. But Cora, Jade, our skater girl, and Nikkita Lyons came out with the win. So there was that. So after that, we had a pretty well, before this match took place, we had a backstage look at the Diamond Mine as it stands now, which was another nod to the absence of someone who got released, who was Malcolm Bivens, which really devastated me because I loved him as a manager and I just loved his kookiness and all of his references that he would make for pop culture or even specifically black culture too. And just to watch him get let go, someone with such a strong personality, like it made me really sad. And they made, reference to it because you saw the Creed brothers sort of walking around training for their match, but just sort of looking a little bit aimless. And then you had Roderick Strong, who was in the news in terms of the rumor mill for saying that he requested his release, which surprised me that he was still there. But I guess I don't know how contracts work. I'm not a business person. I don't know everything about that. But he has sort of stepped up as the quasi leader of Diamond Mine now, which I think is funny because he never really was like a leader of a group. He was just sort of like a cog in the machine of a group. When you think of Undisputed Era and stuff like that with Adam Cole and of course now known as Red Dragon and stuff. But now he's sort of the leader, and so he gave the Creed brothers inspiration and motivation to go out there and compete. But I did not expect them to fight against the Viking Raiders. That was so surprising to me. I was just like, what? The Viking, because they have been absent on the main roster for a minute. Yeah. But I did not expect to see them back in NXT, but I was happy to see them because they, of course, were former NXT Tag Team Champions. So, I mean, okay. I am here for some of the main roster people, leaving and coming back to NXT to get, some more wind under their sails, So I was okay with that. So this match here was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like it was very physical. It felt like a lot of the stuff that we don't see from the Viking Raiders on television, we saw in this match. And it was like they sort of got back to what sort of brought them, acclaim in NXT during the Black and Gold era. And the Creed brothers were all game for it. Like, I enjoy watching them as a tag team because they have so much symmetry, not only just because they're brothers, but because they just work well together. And they just have a level of athleticism that's just really intense. So this was really good. I enjoyed this match a lot. So what did you think, Kat?
Just I guess piggyback with Malcolm Bivens. I do know he did want to leave from what was said, and so understood that we missed. I thought he was definitely an intricate part of NXT. I thought he was very entertaining. As far as this match, it was nice to see the Viking Raiders. I do like them, and sometimes I don't know if WWE used them well. And so you can never be sure. Like the way 1 minute somebody's there and then they're gone, and then you're like, wait, what happened? I honestly thought at some point they probably would have got released, and I'm always surprised that they're still there, and not in like a bad way, just like surprised, like, oh, okay, good. Hopefully you use them and use them well. And so I'm a fan of them as it is. I think they're really talented. But the Creed brothers also just really been impressing me, with their skill. And so it was a really, really good match. Like I feel like probably one of the at least highlights for me was that match because it was like really well done. It was kind of hard hitting, and then you kind of like a mashup of styles to a capacity, like how the Viking Raiders are and then how they are. And so it was a really, really good match. I actually really enjoyed it. And, maybe we'll see more of the Viking Raiders, like on NXT. Like I can see it happening, and maybe that's what Vince is trying to do with moving pieces around and see what works. But I was great with it. Like I was surprised, I'm not going to lie, because I was like, oh, okay. But again, I do like them, and I hope that they can be used better. And this was a good way to use them better. They had a great match, and so I loved it.
Yeah, but then something that did surprise me, though, towards the end of said match, we hear some of their athleticism here. The Creed brothers did come out with the win, but they came out with the win with the assist to Roderick Strong, who came out and hit, I believe, Eric as he was beginning to make a cover, and then the Creed brothers counted out 1, 2, 3, and they came out with the win, but they looked really dissatisfied with the fact that Roderick came out and helped them. So they got into a little bit of an argument here. So do you feel like Diamond Mine may break up, or is it possible that they might just stay together and might just be more dastardly?
I do sense a little bit discord between them, and so it is very possible that they will break up, especially with him wanting, well, with the rumor that he wants to leave. And so, sometimes WWE is good. Let's kind of do what we just do on your way out the door. But maybe, or maybe it's a swerve and maybe they'll stay together. But it does look like there's some kind of contention between them. And again, you want to, I guess, priding yourselves like maybe winning correctly. And so maybe that's what it was, at least the vibe I was getting from that. So it can go either way, but I do feel like it's maybe like the road or the beginning for them to break up and split them apart.
Yeah, it's so sad because it felt like they just caught their a little bit of a vibe, and now it's
Yeah,
just now they're over, and it's just like God dang it, we just cannot have nice things.
I
It's
know.
just it's just like our fearless leader TK Trinidad always says: WWE doesn't care about our feelings. It's business. She
So
th-
true.
Oh God. But to end off NXT's spring break, and we have the main event, which was the NXT championship match between Braun Breaker and Joe Gacy, who is also saying someone due to the releases. His I forgot the name of his henchman. Oh my god, I feel so bad. I know his name on Twitter is Parker Boudreaux, but or Bordeaux, but he got released from WWE as well. So Joe Gacy was just sort of out there
I
kind of
think
by
his name is
himself.
Harlan. I believe his name is
Harlan,
Harlan.
yes,
Yeah.
Harlan. Yes, Harlan was released and let go, but Joe Gacy seemed it didn't seem to really phase him all that much because he really wasn't alone because during the match he sort of had these dark figure druids out in the audience sort of watching the match as it went on. But this match was very it was like a slugfest to me. It's basically what you would expect out of someone like Braun Breaker, who was becoming a lot like he was getting really frustrated at certain points because Joe Gacy was playing mind games with him after the attack on his father and taking his father's Hall of Fame ring, which he just got and everything. So it seemed like Joe Gacy was really successful at playing mind games, but it seemed like for every mind game Joe Gacy had, Braun Breaker, powered out of it, with some mad, crazy athleticism. So in the midst of that, Braun Breaker was able to rise above, even though they were fighting outside of the ring at one point, in the ring at another point, and all of the above. But in the midst of all of that craziness, um, and all of the dark druids, Braun Breaker came out the victor and he retained his NXT title. But towards the end of the show, as he was celebrating his win, what got kind of crazy for me was the fact that you saw these two druids pop up in the ring as he was celebrating. And that's where NXT went off the air. But of course, the action kept going on because they posted more pictures. And the Druids got to fighting with Braun Breaker and they attacked him, and he threw some of them out of the ring and it got really tough. But then there was a point where Joe Gacy was rooting them on and they carried him out on some dark board. So we don't know where Braun Breaker is. He's possibly disappeared into the darkness of hell. We don't know where he's at. So that was how NXT 2.0 ended. It wasn't really a spring breaky type of end. It wasn't a happy peppy type of end. It was really dark and supernatural, which is something that WWE has been missing a little bit of. But I kind of appreciated it from him. So, what did you think of all the carrying on of this?
I did think that for it to be the main event, it was probably the worst part of the night, sadly.
Hmm.
I did feel like it should have been some more, something should have been more there for it to be the main event. I do like Braun Breaker. Again, I mean, as for Parker or Harlan, I was hoping, to see what WWE would do with him. Then they cut his hair, and then he was kind of like the goon guy, and then all of a sudden he was gone. And so it's unfortunate, and I don't know if the whole him being like second Brock Lesnar, like that was going around, if that contribute to him being let go with like clearly you wasn't what Brock was when he first got there. But I don't know if that was why they kind of went that way with it because he was gone. Like, he was kind of there as like that extra person, like henchman kind of vibes from him. And so I just felt the match, like, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely felt like it brought down the rest of NXT, considering everything else was pretty, like, really solid. And so I felt like for that to be the main event, it did bring it down a bit. However, NXT love kidnapping people, apparently. And so it's always being kidnapped and taken somewhere in some random place. And that seems to be the NXT vibe. Like, you will somebody getting kidnapped at least once every few months. And so I just felt like this is now becoming NXT's like thing. Like, well, this person's probably gonna be kidnapped at some point. Let's see what they're gonna do with it. And so I did, like, I guess Joe Gacy kind of fallen into like maybe cult like having some like random dudes take him away. It made sense to me, but I'm like, all right, how many kidnappings do we need? Like, everybody get kidnapped, everybody in the Marvel getting kidnapped. And so, okay, change it up a bit, but it wasn't bad. I just felt like for the rest of the show, it did bring down the end for me. It was a bit of a letdown, only just because everything else was so good. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, all right. And then the kidnapping happened, and I was like, oh, somebody else. Here we go again. Yes. Somebody getting taken away to some random place. But yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And I just hated that it ended and it went off and we didn't see what happened afterward. But I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about it next week, next Tuesday. But either way, with the exception of the main event being kind of slower and everything else like that, it was a pretty solid episode of NXT 2.0. It was pretty good. The matches were pretty great. So with that in mind, we're going to move forward into the world of NXT UK, which is, black and gold, but black and gold and red. So in the midst of that, this was kind of new for me because I hadn't really had that much of a chance to watch NXT UK really since it started because of the time zone differences and because of what I'm doing. I'm usually at work when it comes on and I really just don't think to look at it, but I do know that they have pretty solid action there. So this is really my first time watching a full episode, and it's only an hour long and you can watch it on Peacock. So we're going to be covering that as well. So this started with a talk show segment called the Supernova Sessions with Noam Dar. If you remember him, he was a star in the former cruiserweight division that WWE had after their tournament. And I believe he may have been a cruiserweight champion. I can't remember. And he did have a romance with Alicia Fox. I don't really want to do the voice thing, but yeah, he had a romance with Alicia Fox. And he was out there with Shaw Samuels. And I believe they both shared this Heritage Cup for NXT UK. And they came out there with the intention of having and basically romancing Lash Legend. Here again, making another appearance for NXT. And she was all dressed up and everything, and she was a guest on the show. And it seemed like throughout the show, they were trying to sort of woo her with flowers. And what's so sad is Noam Dar told the ring hand to hand him some flowers, and those flowers were dead looking. But then Shaw Samuels gave him flowers that were very lively, and Lash loved those and threw away the other ones, and she put them in the cup. And basically, she was out there to sort of talk about how better she was than all of the women in, both NXT divisions and stuff, and basically just show herself off and eat food with them and everything. So this was it. It really wasn't a lot of conflict within this outside of, Noam and Shaw just trying to, get in the good graces of Lash Legend and sort of talk about the other debuts that were set to take place either this week or next week on their 200th episode. So what did you think of that segment?
I thought it was funny. Lash Legend did make me laugh a few times during that, especially when she was like, what is the saying when she's in the snap and she like, and I'm like, you tell them Lash Legend, you let them know. Yes. Yeah, I love that she does that. And I love that she did it where, if somebody gives me dead looking flowers, I'm probably gonna toss those too. Like, I'm appreciative, but let's be respectful, give you some flowers with some life to it. And so I found nothing wrong with it. I thought it was a nice move. It was nice to see her on both NXT and on NXT UK, because I'm all about getting those coins. Get the coins and be out there. And so I loved seeing her on it. It was actually a very nice surprise for me because I didn't know she was going to be on it. And so it was nice. It was a nice little segment, like nothing too serious, just to kind of segue into NXT UK. And so I thought it was a good segment to kind of open it up.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. So after that, there was an announcement made by the assistant to the NXT UK general manager. Do you know exactly who the NXT UK general manager is?
Uh, as far as name, I always listen. I'm like terrible with names. Hold on, let me see if I can quickly um find them. Maybe I can see if I can look it up really quick. NXT UKGM. So it's saying his name is Johnny Saint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it's saying. It keeps saying that, so I'm gonna guess that's his name.
Okay.
If I'm wrong,
Well,
please correct me. Who's
yeah,
watching?
please correct us.
But
But yeah, like there was an announcement made saying that there was going to be a tag team match to help qualify tag teams for this, I believe, this triple threat match that is set to take place for the NXT UK tag team titles. And as that announcement was being made, you had Von Wagner pop up and this was sort of like, I guess, the NXT 2.0 invasion into NXT UK, and he was sort of bossing people around. But then there was this other wrestler who popped up who I wasn't completely familiar with myself, but he looked like he really was, raring to fight Von Wagner. But then the assistant broke them up and told them not to fight and everything. And that pretty much, was the end of that segment. But hopefully next week, when we do watch more of it, we'll be more concrete on our names
yeah,
of the backstage talent and everything, because everything was moving kind of fast here. But I guess that's kind of what you can expect from a show that is an hour long.
yes.
So after that, we had the very first match of the night, which was Tiger Turon versus Tate McFair. These are pretty new people to me because I had never really seen them in action before, but this was Tiger Turon's debut in NXT UK. He's a masked man, and I believe I forgot where they said he was from, and I had it in my head too. And basically, he was fighting Tate McFair, and this match was pretty solid. You had them, of course, with the lockup here, and you had a lot of high flying action with the match and everything. And Tiger Turon came out the victor, so this was a really good learning experience for me in terms of these two superstars who I'm not exactly as familiar with, but I do look forward to seeing more from Tiger Turon because even as he came out, some of the superstars later on, were giving him an applause due to his performance. So, what did you think of that match, Kat?
They're all. I don't really know who they are either, and so that was my introduction to them watching the match today on NXT UK. But he definitely, for a debut match, is really entertaining, and I think he definitely delivered. And I feel like, especially when you have a show that's only an hour, you have to kind of make sure you can do what you can do to stand out. And so I feel like he did that. I feel like he's somebody we can probably look for in like upcoming episodes of NXT UK. Like I think he's gonna really do something. He definitely I feel like wearing the mask kind of takes away from just when a lot of wrestlers do wear the matches or have lucha style type wrestling, you kind of focus on the ability because you can't really see what they look like. And so I felt like in that regard, it was only what we can look at was what he was able to do in the ring. And so it was a really, again, a nice first match for NXT UK.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his debut and he did really well. And so I'm looking forward to see what he does next. For NXT UK, but it was a really nice introduction to both of them because I didn't know who either one was honestly before today. And so it was a nice intro to both of them. I thought they both did a really good job.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And even, okay, so I did do some searching and I did find an article. So the person that Von Wagner got into it with backstage was Sam Gradwell. So for future reference, his name is Sam Gradwell. And then they also had a vignette during the episode of NXT UK where they talked about the show that's set to take place on Saturday, September the 3rd, called Clash at the Castle, which is going to be the first event that they're having there in the big event, arena event that they're having in the UK in over 30 years. And it's a really big deal. So I'm really happy that that is taking place, and it just so happens to take place on my birthday eve. So we're gonna watch it, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna watch it and cover it, here on Women's Wrestling Talk, and it's gonna be cool. And I'm really happy for the fans of UK that they get this really big event, especially after everything that we've been going through without live shows and everything. And then, of course, with them not having a large arena show like that in over 20 or 30 years, I know they have to be excited for that. So I am pumped for that. And they also made another announcement involving a tag team match between Gallus versus Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter, and the winner will qualify to fight for the NXT UK tag team titles. And they had a little bit of a scuffle backstage or whatever, but that was really it. Then they also announced that Ivy Nile of the Diamond Mine was going to be going to NXT UK and fighting Nina Samuels on the 200th episode of NXT UK next week. So those were a couple of announcements that they had during the program. But then the second match we had was the debut of Damon Kemp, who is from the United States, from Minnesota, versus Danny Jones. Now, something funny that I did notice was the fact that on commentary, they mentioned the fact that Damon Kemp is actually went to the same university as Gable Steveson and Brock Lesnar. And it's just so funny to me how this university just keeps churning out wrestling stars. Like, do they just, it's almost like Minnesota, it's like Alabama for football.
Yeah.
But except they're that for wrestling. And it's just like to watch this school. I know this school has to be feeling mighty proud to have all of their wrestlers go on to do big things, in wrestling, whether it be in various promotions like WWE or AEW and stuff like that. So this match was really good. I know Damon really did impress me a lot with his technical ability and with his Greco-Roman style. So I really did enjoy that match. I wish it was a little bit longer, maybe. But then again, like I said, it's only an hour. But we can't really necessarily get as spoiled with things. But I did like this match, and I like how Danny Jones was able to rise up to the occasion of facing someone like that. But in the end, with the match, Damon Kemp wound up winning, but he wasn't able to celebrate it as long because he got attacked by Shaw Samuels, who we saw earlier in the night. And yeah, he attacked him, and I guess they're going to fight at some point. But that was pretty interesting. So, what did you think about that?
I definitely, when they did say the thing about Brock Lesnar and stuff, and I'm like, well, we already know what you expect from a wrestler like Brock Lesnar. The guy is going to be dominant. He's going to kind of throw people around the ring. And so I definitely got the vibe he's wearing the singlet, like he was kind of massive and, and so you can tell when they started grappling right away, they got locked up a bit. Then I'm like, all right, like you can see that there's some skill there. I do think it might have been a little bit different just because it's, wrestling in like a school is a little different than wrestling, in front of a entertainment aspect when it's for WWE. There's differences. I felt like he looked a little nervous, at least to me, he did in the very beginning. But he did well. I do think there was a lot of grappling. There's suplexes again. People with singlets usually know how to do a good suplex, and so he, had that and a lot of arm grabs, a lot of lockups, and so it was a nice debut for him as well, as far as kind of introducing him to the to WWE, but also to the UK audience. And so that was nice. It was nice to see that. I did enjoy it. Again, it was a solid debut for him. And I guess to piggyback off of you mentioning the event, the big event that they're having, then yes, it seemed like even with where they're like touring, I believe they were doing some shows overseas in Europe, and they seem like they're having a really good time. And so we all know how it felt. Where I haven't been to a WWE show since. No, I'm lying. I was definitely at Survivor Series. I totally forgot about that. But it's been very I've been doing wrestling shows, but I guess indie shows are a little different than doing like a big show like WWE because there's so many people. And so after COVID has been really and it's still happening. Unfortunately, we're now in like the third year of this. And so to have where you can kind of see like they can get some of that back to you, America kind of just was like, F it with regards to like opening stuff up and being very lax about things. And so I guess in that regards, not that I want people not to be safe, but just like in regards to kind of having something that a wrestling fan will like, oh, we get a big event too. That's nice for them. I do feel like it's going to be a really big thing. I feel like they're setting it up to be a really solid match. You know, Drew McIntyre has been like on it for the last couple of weeks talking about
Yeah.
it. And so, I think it's going to be a really, really good pay-per-view. And I think it's definitely good for those fans over there to kind of have something because, we had a kind of few pay-per-views now since everything kind of opened back up over here. And
Mhm.
so I don't know, again, how aspect in regards to like major wrestling is over there with regards to like the bigger companies. So I think, that's good for them. I'm happy that they get to have that, and hopefully everybody's safe and all that stuff. But it was a good match. I think it was a nice debut. And again, he's somebody I'm looking forward to seeing more of. Like, see what else he can do. You have the wrestlers who can be like quick and that can flip off things and flashy, but then he seems more fundamental when it comes to
Yes.
moves. Like, he's very more grounded in his moves, and so I like that. I do like Kurt Angle style wrestling. Like, that you know they can wrestle. When
Yes.
you wrestle, they're gonna wrestle, and so that's the vibe I was getting. And so I'm interested to see what else they're gonna do with him. But I thought it was a nice debut.
Yeah, I did too. And then after this match, they made the announcement, of course, that NXT UK's 200th episode will be happening next week. And they showed a segment showing a lot of where NXT UK started. Like, it started really from a tournament. Like, that's so funny to me how this one whole promotion started from like a tournament to crown a UK champion for WWE. And it's just amazing to see how much it has grown and stuff. Even though I haven't really watched much of it, they've had very talented people. We've had very talented people come from the UK brand. Like, you've had the likes of Rhea Ripley and Tony Storm there, the likes of Pete Dunne, and just so many various people, to kind of come through there and sort of, put their stamp on things, whether it be on main roster or even in NXT 2.0 as of now. So they will be having their 200th episode next week, and I'm really excited to see that and to watch them celebrate that, because I just can't even believe it's been that many episodes
Yeah.
already. Like, where is time going, Cat?
It's fun. Listen, the fact that we're
Where is
already
it
in
going?
May, it's just like I feel like we just did New Year's in January and we're already like mid spring. And so time is flying. And so yeah, it didn't feel like 200 episodes passed, but clearly it did. I don't feel like it's been around as long as but apparently it was. It just doesn't feel like it's been around that long. But it is cool that a tournament, and the places that produce people like Walter and Tony Storm and Rhea Ripley,
Hmm.
you know, is making their 200th episode. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we get to cover it next week. So, of course, be on the lookout for that with Women's Wrestling Talk. We're going to cover it. So, our main event which is something that I live for. I live for women being in the main event, honey. And it's a norm now. So, here we are. We have the main event for the NXT UK Women's title, which is probably my favorite title of all of them because it's so beautiful. Between Meiko Satamura and Isla Dawn in a World of Darkness match. Now, this was interesting because I had never heard of a World of Darkness match up until this point. But from what I gathered, it sort of fit more of Isla Dawn's sort of spooky, ghostly type of energy, and that she would sort of have a little bit of the upper hand in this type of match. And the lights were down, and there was lots of smoke and lots of magic stuff going on and everything, potions and stuff. So that's what was going on in this match. But even as Isla was sort of trying to creep and get into the mind of Meiko Satamura before they even rang the bell. Meiko was ready to fight. She
Yes.
punched her immediately. And it was so funny because to watch like Isla sort of just go like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And then the referee had to pull them apart and then ring the bell. Then they all just started fighting eventually, and it was
Yeah.
really cool and it was really hard hitting. And then because it was no DQ, they could use weapons, and they were using chairs, they were using ropes, they were using like cords and stuff. Like, I loved this match. I absolutely loved it. There was even a point where Isla took the hair of one of her opponents and tried to use it to torture Mako's face while having her, in this lock here. Like, that was just really crazy to me. Like, that was just lots of cool, like, crazy stuff. And even in her eyes, like, Isla was not, playing when she said she wanted to win this match. Like she was just doing everything she could. Like, but in the end, even with all the ropes and all the tricks and everything, Meiko Satamura came out with the win, even after being DDT'd on some chairs and even being suplexed on some chairs. She still kicked out and still retained her NXT UK Women's title. This was a heck of a match. I enjoyed it very much. So, what about you, Katrina?
I loved it. I'm a really big fan of Meiko. I was really happy when she won the title in the first place. I thought, again, WWE sometimes drop the ball on people that we know is really good. And so I'm already a fan of her. And so it was a nice concept. I definitely do agree that it was more so for Isla to like, this is for you. This is more of your type of match. They mentioned like, oh, she's like doing witch stuff. And I'm like, okay, interest is peaked a little. Like to see what we're going to have the whole like the smoke and the darkness and kind of like she's doing potions. And so I thought it was a nice little touch. But I felt like even with that, Michael was able to still show like, well, there's a reason I'm champion, and she did. And so there was parts where it was like, ouch, a little brutal at points, but I felt like she was able to take all of that, and she still like prevailed to keep her championship. And again, as you said, I'd love to see women's wrestling main event. There seems to be those thoughts that women don't watch wrestling and there's not like people are not going to watch it, and that's pure nonsense. And so we do watch wrestling. Women of all types watch wrestling, and we definitely support women matches, and we want to see the main event. And so it was perfect to have her main event that. I thought it was a really, really, really good match. I don't know where they're going to go, I guess, if they decide to continue this feud or not. I have no idea, but I thought it was really, like I said, it was different. I wouldn't have expected somebody like Meiko to kind of put herself in a match like that, but it was good. And she again showed why she was champion as long as she's been champion. And so I'm excited. Again, I haven't watched NXT UK in a minute, so I had to kind of like refresh on some things that was happening. And so it was really good way to end off the show. And again, you only have an hour. And so what can you do to make people talk about it next week? Perfect way to do that with that match. And so it was good. I really, really enjoyed the match, and I'm a fan of both. And so I'm just looking forward to see what happens next, if they continue to feud or if they kind of decide to go somewhere else with the two of them.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this match, and I agree with everything you said. Like, it was really good, and I am excited to see what comes next of the reign of Meiko Satamura, who was the woman who ended, Alba Fire's reign as NXT UK Women's Champion. So I'm really pumped to see where she goes. I'm also pumped to see where Isla Dawn's gonna go. I'm really interested in NXT UK's women's division, like, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that take place. Well, we've reached the end of our time. That's our after show for NXT 2.0 and NXT UK. Thank you so much for joining us here as we, cover both of these shows, this third and fourth brand of WWE. And of course, I'm really grateful for Kat for joining me here as we host this new show every Thursday. And then, of course, sometimes, life happens and one of us isn't here or both of us isn't here. Someone else will be here and it'll be okay. But in the midst of it all, we're going to be here through it all, and give you all the deets on NXT. So with that in mind, Kat, just tell everyone where they can find you and follow you.
I have pretty much everything. So in Cat We Trust on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. The E is a 3, but type it up. You should find me. And I guess wanted to throw it out there because I am running the TikTok Women's Wrestling Talk account. And we've been getting some traction, and I'm super pumped about that. And so if you have TikTok, definitely please go to TikTok and subscribe, or rather click the follow button for Women's Wrestling Talk TikTok if you want just little clips of what we do on Twitch and YouTube. So, but yeah, find me there. I'm pretty much doing a whole bunch of stuff now. And so you'll probably catch me on some place doing something, since it's so much. But
yes, thank you so much for joining me. And as usual, you can find me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And you can follow my podcast, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And also know that you can follow Women's Wrestling Talk on Instagram and Twitter at WW Talk Pod. And you can check out our website, www.talkpod.com, for all the latest info, women's wrestling news, all of our interviews, and so many various articles that we have. Because, of course, this month, May, is Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We have lots of great articles, in the tank getting put out every day about great women of Asian and Pacific Islander descent. So please be on the lookout for that stuff, because we love all forms of representation here. And it's a beautiful month for that to happen. So please check out our great articles with that. And also, of course, check out all of our after shows for Raw, AEW, SmackDown, and AEW Rampage, which me and Drion Santana host and everything. And just check us out, because if you aren't checking us out, then what you doing? We're taking over. We are taking over one. We are taking over one website, one city, one country, one state, every state at a time.
Yes.
So with that in mind, thank you for joining us on Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. And until next time, bye, y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.